What's up guys, you're watching another episode of Gear Chronicles on TUGGtv. Now I have been in the market for an acoustic guitar, a new acoustic guitar rather, for quite some time now. And as soon as the lockdown sort of eased out, I went out there and started looking for many. I have had my eyes set on Yamaha acoustic guitars for quite some time, notably because I have been told that, they really have some good guitars and they have great quality control. And that's what we're here to check out. This is the Yamaha FGX800c acoustic guitar. Let's take a look at what it sounds like. If this is the first time you're on this channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button along with the bell icon for more news and updates from us. So starting off, as I'd mentioned, one reason that sort of made me look at Yamaha guitars is because whenever you talk about Yamaha music instruments, they have a fairly decent reputation. Now, I did go ahead and try out a lot of guitars, but one thing that stood out to me was quality control on this one. And believe me, when people say Yamaha has good quality control, it absolutely holds true. So this guitar I picked up, I've owned it now for about a couple of weeks. I picked it up from Thompson Musical, who is an exclusive Yamaha dealer here in Bangalore, Indranagar. Paid about 24,000 rupees for it. I didn't really take it with an extra bag and any of that because I don't need it. I have linked the specifications of this guitar in the description below, but it's quite straightforward. This is a solid top spruce guitar. Apart from that, it's got NATO wood on the back, sides. The neck is also NATO. It's got what is called Yamaha System 66 pickup, which is a Piezo style pickup, which we will also talk about. And apart from that, standard tuners. This is the 800c model, which means it's got a cutaway. There is also the FGX800, which does not come with a cutaway. I prefer the cutaway. It's also the way I had it in my Cort 8880CE. So that's what I stuck with. You can see here it's got a nice black binding as well. Synthetic bone bridge, synthetic bone nut. The tuners are also quite decent. Now coming down to what really stands out to me and what I liked about this guitar, firstly, the neck. In terms of playability, there certainly is something about it. There is a very fluid essence and feeling to the way that you can use this neck. So whether you're picking notes or you want to strum chords, bar chords, no problem at all. This neck feels very, very at home. The next thing I want to dive into and talk about is the System 66 pickup by Yamaha, which is on this guitar. So this is a Piezo style pickup, which means it's sort of an under saddle pickup. That's where it's picking up the frequencies from. It's got a volume knob, 3 standard knobs in terms of bass, mid-range and the higher range frequencies. It's got a battery check, it's got a tuner, which is great, and it also has something called AMF, which we will talk about. And finally, input jack is available right here, which doubles up as your strap lug. In terms of strapping this guitar, this is the only lug that is available. There's nothing over here, which means if you do want to stand upright and play this guitar, you will probably have to get one of those straps which you sort of tie on the nut end. One more thing I want to highlight is, unlike most guitars, the battery component is over here. This is where you're going to feed the battery for the pickup. And unlike most acoustic guitars which use a standard 9-volt battery, this guy uses 2 AA batteries. So you open it up like this, and that's what we have. So these are the standard batteries which came to me with the guitar. You can of course go for other batteries if you want, or even rechargeables. I've also recorded some samples of just the guitar alone in terms of what it sounds like through the System 66 pickup in comparison to what it sounds mic'd up. In terms of sound, I would say that the System 66 still does have a very electric guitar sound, because let's face it, if you want the absolute classic acoustic sound, there really is no better way to record, than using a microphone. We have done an erstwhile video in terms of the differences of recording between a mic versus pickup. That's again linked in the description, so I'm not going to get into too many details here. But this is sort of just to let you know what kind of sound you're going to get. One thing that does stand out on this pickup, as mentioned earlier, was the AMF, or Adjustable Mid-Range Frequency. And what that sort of allows you to do is it allows you to dial the mid-range, and in many ways it sort of works like the pickup selector on an electric guitar. By default, you'd have the AMF in the middle. That's what I've done almost all the recording that you have heard on, until now. You then have an 80 Hz and a 10K Hz that you can also dial it, and then of course it's a slider, so you can fine tune as much that you want. What I've noticed is when you move it towards the 80 Hz, it has a more warmer tone, very resemblant to that of a neck pickup. And then when you move to 10K Hz, it has that very typically frosty, bright tone, sort of, you can say, that you would get from the bridge. Here again is a sample. I didn't really record a video, but this was just the sample of me playing the guitar and then, playing around with the AMF. I think overall that does give you some amount of versatility. I think going forward, if I were to play through pickup, I would definitely lean more towards that 80 Hz warmer tone, because that's kind of what I sort of liked. And if you have the option to mic up and record, that would be great. But the reason I'm highlighting this is because as a bedroom jammer, you may not always have the equipment necessary, or sometimes there's a lot of ambient noise which you might be finding problematic to tune down, in which case the pickup definitely gives you some amount of playability to find a very authentic and unique tone. So the final thing I would want to highlight on this guitar is when I picked this up at stock, it had a very high action. So I went ahead and shaved it down a little bit to suit myself. Action is very subjective, so I'm not going to get into it. Some of you may like higher action, some of you may want it. The tuners do feel great. They don't have clunky movement, they're quite smooth. And it does hold tune very decently. Another thing I want to highlight is at stock, this guitar comes stringed up with Yamaha's stock set. I don't know what is the model of the set. I'll probably list it out in the description. But this is a 12 gauge of strings, which is a relatively heavier gauge compared to the normal 10s that I play. So you might want to keep that in mind. If you play a heavy gauge of strings, it's perfectly fine. The benefit of a heavy gauge is that it gives this guitar a very nice full tone, but then again you can change it, and depending on that it would alter your tone slightly. So I use the stock strings, on most of the samples I played, because sort of is brand new and I wanted to see what it actually sounds like. Also because I'm not used to such a heavy gauge, most of everything that I played is on an E flat tuning, that's what I've done to suit myself. But if you have to tune this guy up to E standard, no problems at all. As mentioned earlier, this is a solid top guitar, so that bridge can really hold a nice thick gauge of strings, no problem at all. I highlight this because there are a lot of guitars in the market which are not solid top. They use multiple ply and then press it together and then make the top. As a result of which, when you use a very heavy gauge of strings on those guitars, the bridge eventually starts coming up, and you definitely won't have a problem with this. Of course, the one thing I want to highlight about these strings is that they aren't coated strings, and I don't really like that, because then when you are sliding across, there is a lot more string noise you would get from this than if you were playing a normal set of coated strings. So you might want to keep that in mind, which is why when I was playing these samples, I did a lot more of lifting my fretting hand and all of that. So finally, what are my thoughts on this guitar? Now when it comes to acoustics, I think irrespective of how much metal you play, there really is a lot of fun in terms of just kicking back and going unplugged. I also advocate playing acoustic because I personally think it's great exercise for your fretting hand. So it definitely is worthwhile to have one. Now this thing of course is a mid-range guitar. It's going to cost you a tune of 24,000 rupees. But for your 24,000 rupees, what you get is a solid quality instrument. It's got great playability. There are no sort of quality control issues. The frets aren't sprouting. They feel great in the hand. The guitar is top notch. Tuners are top notch. Even the stock strings that come with this guitar are fairly decent, in my personal opinion. But that could change from person to person, and it's not a big deal. You can go ahead and change it. But in summary, everything that Yamaha talks about in terms of quality control, overall quality, fit and finish is definitely there in this. Not to mention that it's got an extremely nice rounded and full tone, and this System 66 pickup is pretty decent and can put on a solid live performance. Not to mention, if you want to record at home, that it does have versatility. You can use the AMF, you can dial in a sort of sound that you want, no problems at all. And with that, I come to the end of this episode. What are your thoughts? Do you own a Yamaha? Do you own the FGX800? Let me know in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up if you like what you see. Subscribe to our channel for more content. This is TUGGtv signing off. Until next time, stay metal.